My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my ranking of Alejandro Iñárritu movies from worst to best. And I'm very mixed on him as a filmmaker. I think he's an excellent director. All of his movies look and sound great, and especially in the past decade, he's established a stronger and stronger vision for each and every one of his movies. But his scripts can be so inaccessible. He's trying to explore so many ideas and they don't really come through in a concise manner, but more importantly, in an accessible manner. I know some people love some of his movies and it's all subjective, but I just think so many of his are too long and too boring. And it's a shame because you see potential with him, but I just do not love him as a filmmaker. But let's begin talking about his worst movie. And this is probably a hot take, but it's beautiful. I watched this movie less than a month ago and I literally forget everything about it. I remember I liked Gustavo Santaolalla's score, and that's about it. Javier Bardem's performance, it was Oscar nominated. It didn't leave an impression on me. The movie doesn't hit those emotional beats. It's way too long, like unbelievably too long. It's very boring. I have nothing else of value to say about it. His second worst movie is his most recent movie, and it's Bardo, or The Chronicle of a Handful of Truths or something like Bottle. It's Bottle. Anyways, this was a movie that when it came out, I had zero interest in watching, but because I'm doing this ranking video, I had to give it a try, and it was a tough get through. Now, you do see a strong vision behind this movie. It is beautifully shot. There's one moment in particular that uses shadows in a really effective manner. But I was just at a distance while watching this movie. I could not get on board. I could not connect with anything on the screen. I just found it to be inaccessible and purposely so. You can see what he's trying to say through it, but if I'm not entertained, if I'm not engaged, then I don't care, and that was the case for this movie. I found it to be insufferably long and boring, and the fact it was originally half hour longer, it sounds like hell to me. His third worst movie is 21 Grams. Now, Naomi Watts' performance here is phenomenal. I like her as an actress, but I've never seen her be this good. She is what raises this movie above the other two. She's just incredible. I think she should have won the Oscar for this movie. But everything else in this movie is very forgettable. Once again, I watched it less than 2 weeks ago and I just forget everything about it. I know there was Sean Penn and Benicio del Toro, and Sean Penn started dating Naomi Watts after she lost her husband and kid, and I remember small pieces here and there, but it just didn't leave an impression on me. The way he told the story in a very non-linear fashion just hurts any potential it had, and I just found it to be lacking overall, despite the great performance by Naomi Watts. And that scene when she finds out what happened to her husband and kid is just heartbreaking. His fourth best movie, or fourth worst movie, is Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. Look, I know it won Best Picture. I know lots of people love this movie, and I can admire certain aspects of it. The filmmaking is top notch. The cinematography and the editing to make it look like one shot is incredibly impressive. Is it needed? I don't think so, but it's still very well crafted. Michael Keaton is good in this movie. I thought Emma Stone was good, Edward Norton steals the show for me, though. It's trying to tackle lots of ideas about comic book movies kind of taking over and how people don't want to see personal stories anymore, and just focusing on this guy trying to gain some sort of admiration. And it's trying to tackle a lot of things. It just didn't really connect with me. I felt like I was at a distance yet again, and the emotional points didn't land. There's certain moments that just reek of pretentiousness, and by the end of it, I can respect it to a degree, but it's not one I see myself ever going back to. Mediocre at best. My third favorite movie from Alejandro Iñárritu is Amores Perros. Now, I do really like the first two stories here. The first one with Gael Garcia Bernal's character having an affair with his brother's wife, and how he has this dog that is winning all these dog fights. Really good stuff there. The characters are well written, you understand the motivations and the conflict that comes between them. Really good. They've got this second story where this woman is seeing this guy. She's the mistress in an affair. He leaves his wife and kids to be with her, but then an accident happens, and what was once a fairy tale fantasy doesn't turn out that way. And I do really like this one. I think the characters have depth. It just is a very, what's the word? Hopeless story of them trying to find any bit of hope. And it just becomes less and less likely. And I think it's very good. I know some people don't like this one. I just don't agree. And then you've got the last story, which is where this movie really fell apart for me, where it's focusing on this guy. He's getting out of prison, he's trying to reconnect with his daughter, and I just found it to drag. I was never invested in anything going on here. And if this movie was just the first two stories, I'd be a much higher on it. But at 2 hours and 30 minutes long, and a last act that just bored me to no end, it really does ruin some of this movie's quality. It's still very well made. I do like how he's trying to explore the human condition. I do think there's something here about nature versus nurture, but even how some people just dig themselves into bigger and bigger holes. I do like this movie. It's just the last section really kills it for me. And my second favorite movie of his is Babel. Now, I'm mixed on certain elements. The Japan storyline starts off very good, but then it kind of lost me at a certain point. The wedding storyline I found to be boring, even though the moment where they go back into the US was very tense. The other two storylines are great. The story with the two little boys starts off in a very disgusting fashion, but once the plot kicks in and they accidentally shoot an innocent person, you feel the weight of that mistake, and they act like kids would, but you also see how that action affects so many different people, and the father trying to deal with all that, I just found to be incredibly well written and powerfully acted. These three performances deserved more recognition than they got. And then you've got Brad Pitt's storyline, who's just this guy. His wife is dying, and he's in a country he doesn't know. Well, everyone speaks a language he doesn't understand, and he's just helpless. And you just feel the weight of the importance of communication and how language barriers can really matter in a life or death scenario. And I do think there are some concise themes that are really well explored. So I do like lots of this movie. It's just there's a couple storylines I could have done without, and it's a bit too long. But my favorite movie by Alejandro Iñárritu is easily The Revenant. This is the one movie of his I truly love. Leonardo DiCaprio won his Oscar for this movie, and rightfully so. It is a fantastic physical performance, and he brings so much to it. Tom Hardy is despicable as the villain, and he just chews up the scenery on every scene. Will Porter's really fantastic. Domhnall Gleeson's great, so the entire cast does a great job. It is beautifully shot. Like, cinematography-wise, just one of the best ever. It elevates every single moment. The sound design is really great, and the moments of action, when they happen, they are brutal. Like, that bear attack is tough to watch, and the last fight is so well done. And you've just got this story about this guy trying to keep going, and how he's lost his wife, he's lost his kids, and how it'd be so easy for him to just give up and join them in the afterlife. But this revenge quest he has is now the purpose he has. It's what drives him now. And I think it does such a fantastic job with that. It is just an incredible movie in all aspects. You could argue it's a little long, but I'm still entertained the entire time. I love this movie, and that's why it's my favorite Alejandro Iñárritu movie. But what's your ranking of his filmography? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, and Gavin out.